I'm currently working on the website of my colleague Oliver Gareis, and you may know him because of his Typo Monday Club layouts. And there is a pretty interesting use case here, which I want to show you today, how to animate collection list items in a Webflow from a Webflow CMS, but one after another, every time when they come into the viewport. And when you look at this, you maybe think, okay, Jonas, this is easy. Just use the new GSAP timeline and then use a stagger effect for every item. But there will definitely be a problem coming up, and I want to show you a solution and how to realize this effect pretty easily within Webflow. And to demonstrate this, let's use this poster list, collection list here. And we can use a grid here to make the items side by side, maybe 3 columns. And when we now use one of these poster items and go to interaction, we can make scroll animation. Let's use a poster slide up here as a description. For the trigger, we can use the trigger actions, and when they come into view, we just want to play them once. Let's hide the scroll markers. Let's also make sure to deactivate the clamp start end values, because some items here are already in the viewport and are not coming up from outside of the viewport. And that's it for the trigger. And then we can add one action step here, just double clicking the timeline. The target is here the trigger element, which is fine, which is this item here. And then we want to animate this one from maybe 5 frame to the bottom. And then it should go back to where it is in the Webflow Designer. Maybe let's also use an opacity of 0, and that's it. And because all of those elements here share the same class, they will definitely come up all at once. You see it now, they slide in, but it seems like the whole row is sliding in, and we want to have a little delay in between those elements. So even if you use a stagger effect here with an offset time of maybe 50 milliseconds, this is not working. And maybe there is a possibility here to stagger them one after another if you use the grid settings here. I don't really know what this is here, because now it's in the x-axis. This is horizontally, so it's normally I use a grid here and there are elements side by side. So another solution would be to just delete this action step, and then we can use from this action overview here a new one, and this is the set action. And this one is basically just adding a class or removing a class to a certain element, in our case, when this element is now coming into the viewport. So we can choose a class name here, and you can see if I now use is visible, for example, this must be a class that's already in our project. So if you type in is active or something and it's not coming up, then the reason is that you have to go back into your layout and just add one div element maybe here and give this the class you want to add to an element. In my case, it's is visible. And then you have to make sure that this class is not deleted by Webflow if you, for example, use the style cleaner here. Pack this div element inside of your header component. And in my case, it's here in my classes do not clean up a div element. And then we go back to the interaction. And you can see I can now add or remove this class or just toggle it back and forth if I scroll up and down. And this is also an interaction step that was not possible before with the old interactions. Because right now we're just adding a class to an element, we are not animating this element, but it's pretty useful and you can see in a minute why. And to animate now the poster item together with the isVisible class, you could just use the div element here and use the same structure, poster item. And to animate this element now, we have to make the animation here via the CSS animations and with the transform options. So we scroll down here in the 2D, 3D transform, we can add the plus and move this element down maybe 6 rem. And then we can also add a transition effect here for the transform options, which is this one. And let's maybe use 800 milliseconds, and then we can use maybe ease out quad effect here. But now we have to define the state where it should animate to. And this means we have to add our isVisible class here to this element and then override the move back to the 0 position. And we can also animate other styles here. For example, the opacity, let's reduce it to the main class, and let's put in the isVisible class here back in and put in the opacity back to 100%. And in this case, We could even animate the opacity a bit faster with an ease effect. So they could have different easing effects, which is pretty cool. And if we now put in the isVisible class, then it's being animated from transparent back to the normal state. And if we go into the preview now, you see every item is sliding up, but it's still every row because we don't have a delay in between those elements. And sadly, we cannot define a delay for the first, the second, or the third child here for the collection list items, because Webflow is only offering the first, last, odd, or even items here to target the structure. So that means we have to add a little bit of custom CSS code, but that's pretty easy to understand. So let's make this one visible. And you can see here for the stagger effect, we target the poster list, which is this element. And then inside the vdyn item, this is the standard CSS class Webflow is adding to every collection list item. You could also write a poster item here, so that would be the same. And then in this case, it's the first child, this one is the second, the third, and that means the second and the third child are getting a delay here, so the animation will take place later. And if we have maybe 4 items in one row, you could just add one more here with the 4 and add 90 seconds here to the milliseconds. And if we want to add a reduced motion option here, you can also do this. So if a user prefers reduced motion, you can just make the animation none or bring the opacity back and also make no transform of this element. So we can make a screenshot of this embed and then just place it in UAI tool and it's translating it into a code for you. Let's now go into the preview, and every item should now have a little bit of a delay, which looks way more premium than before. One problem we now have here in the Webflow Designer is we cannot see the items because the default state is opacity 0 for every item. So that means we have to override this just in the editor or in the Webflow Designer. And that's also something you could do with, I think, the VF Design mode option. So that would mean we can just, for example, here, make the VF Design mode. Here, for example, the poster item here. Let's grab this code. And then we can bring the, the transform and also the opacity here to just back to 1. And now we should see those elements, even they are normally on the live page not visible by default. But if you want to tweak the animations, you have to delete those lines here first. And by the way, Oliver Gareis has also an online course here on his website. And if you are interested in learning those editorial design skills, I asked him for a coupon code for my community, and you can use the code FORMBOOK at checkout, and then you get 50% off.